All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Play Pause Rewind. We are back for another episode. The holidays are in the past. But yeah, it's I guess the New Year's in the past now, too. We're in 2022. Niles, how have you been since the recording of our last episode?
I've been great. And, I think since we're on the topic of the new year, I don't know if we talked about this last episode, but I think we've been doing this podcast for about a year at this point.
Yeah, we are almost at the 1 year birthday of the show. I think our first episode came out February 12th or something like that. So this will be the last episode before that, I think. So that's really cool.
Go us. But yeah, I've been doing good. How about you, Dylan?
Doing pretty well. Just hanging out mostly. Yeah, it's cold here again. We were supposed to have some snow today, but it did not arrive. But it was still very cold and dark all day.
Yeah, right. It'll get here. Just give it time. We're recording this in Colorado for our listeners around the world. And today we are talking about Hawkeye, which is the latest Disney Plus miniseries in the MCU. And it stars Jeremy Renner, Haley Steinfeld,
Vera Farmiga.
Terrible. Thank you, Vera Farmiga. I'll let you do all the names from now on.
Vera Farmiga, Alika Cox, Florence Pugh, Tony Dalton, Fra Fee, and Linda Cardellini. And there was a potential spoiler in that cast list, but if you are caught up on the MCU, it's not a spoiler. So I included it anyway.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that more in spoilers. But other than that, we will be spoiler free for a couple minutes, then dive into spoilers. But the Hawkeye series follows Clinton Barton and series newcomer Kate Bishop after the events of Avengers Endgame in their adventures in New York City leading up to Christmas. Basically, we kind of start off with Kate Bishop, really, and sort of shenanigans happen that lead her to cross paths with Clint Barton, Hawkeye. And then we go from there. What did you think of the series overall, Miles?
Well, I thought, finally, a Marvel show with a dog in it. This is just what I wanted.
Yes.
He's the star of the show, the dog, really. No.
He's really cute.
He's great. He's great in the show, and he's very cute. Yeah, it's a great dog. But I really enjoyed this show. I think that you and I might have a little bit of disagreement about where this ranks on in terms of the other MCU series, like Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision and all that stuff. Because I still think WandaVision and Loki are the better ones for sure. But, that's going to probably change over time. And this one is still very solid through and through. I feel like it definitely, it's got a lot of emotional weight in it. And it gives us a lot of, new context for the world, after the blip. Which is something that I'm really interested in. We can talk about that a lot more later too. But I really appreciated this series, and it was just kind of nice to see, Jeremy Renner in more of a mentor role rather than just a deadly assassin role.
Yeah, he gets a lot of characterization in this show, and I really liked it as well. And I do actually agree with you that I think WandaVision and Loki are overall better and more intriguing shows. But what I meant in my note is this show, in terms of quality, is maybe the most consistent, and I think it gets better as it goes along. Whereas WandaVision was awesome, and then the finale was just very generic, in my opinion. So so it's it has this really unique premise about sitcoms and sort of mind-bending stuff and trauma and grief and all that. And then the finale is two witches flying around shooting magic lasers at each other.
Yeah.
Hawkeye did not have that problem. And it had a different feel than we've gotten used to in the MCU. It was very New York centric, boots on the ground in New York. It was set at Christmas, so it had a holiday feel to it, which I think sets it apart a little bit. And it's just I thought it was really charming, and I like the relationship between the leads. It's just fun, and I'm glad it was a holiday show. It was fun.
Yeah, right. And I really I appreciate it when Marvel focuses on characters that don't really have superpowers
Mhm.
because, they're a little bit more relatable. I'm not Thor. I can't fly through the sky or shoot lightning or, summon the Bifrost or anything like that. But, I can certainly walk down the street in New York, just like
Yeah.
Clint Barton does or Kate Bishop does. I can shoot a bow and arrow, probably not as well as they can. Definitely not as well as they can.
Mhm.
But, they're just kind of average people trying to do the right thing. And well, isn't that nice? That's just such a nice kind of like wholehearted, wholesome thing. So I appreciate them giving some screen time to Clint Barton, and to Kate Bishop, and without getting too much into spoilers, but also Yelena from
Mhm.
Black Widow, which we'll get into a little bit more later. So I appreciate it when they're focusing in on these kinds of stories rather than just the crazy, fun, magical adventures.
Yeah, and I like, we talk about this a lot, but I want the MCU, if it's going to continue going on, which it will because money, to at least have a lot of diversity in the types of stories they're telling. So like
Mhm.
we got Loki, and I think that the Disney Plus shows have executed on this very well. Each one is very distinct from the others, and it sort of boosts the reason for their existence, I think.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, do you want to jump into spoilers, or do you have a couple more
I
general
had a
thoughts?
couple other thoughts because, like, one other thing that we'll talk a little bit more in spoilers about. But Disney and Marvel, they're doing a great job of prioritizing representation, and we kind of talked about this in our Eternals episode as
Hmm.
well. But we get some you know characters in this series that um, you know are deaf or have kind of these physical limitations, and
Yeah.
they don't let those aspects get in the way of just being themselves. So it's nice to see Marvel kind of being a little bit more forward with the representation,
Hmm.
prioritizing it a little bit more, giving us characters that are more nuanced and not just like one note.
Yeah, they're starting to do a little bit more than the absolute bare minimum for
Mhm.
representation, which is like Avengers Endgame, bare minimum. There is a gay guy in one scene, and he mentions that he went on a date with a man, and that's all you get. They're
Yep.
improving a little bit. So,
Yeah, they're getting better over
mhm.
time. But I thought the series did a really good job with character development. We get a new side of Clint Barton in this series, which is great. They're branching out into new areas. There's a dog in the show. I think we already mentioned that. Love the dog. Good doggo.
Mhm.
Didn't get enough patos, but that's okay. And I think, we've talked about this in some of our other Marvel um, episodes
Mhm.
about like themes that are going on in this phase 4. So I'm not going to really try and dive too far into that again, but themes of like mentorship, trauma, and kind of atonement, I felt like were very prevalent through this series, which I appreciate as well. So we're getting those kinds of diverse themes, these different feels for the shows and the movies. So I think that's just a neat thing.
Totally. Yeah, but overall, I agree. Pretty fun series, and I don't know. I'm glad it existed. I'm glad it's a mini
Me too.
series too. I think that was the right move.
Yeah, I was initially kind of surprised at how few episodes there were. Like after the first one came out, I Googled it and I was like, oh, there's only going to be like, 6 episodes. That's really short, you
Yeah,
know, but it's absolutely the right number of episodes. Like, I don't want them to stretch this story out any longer than it was. So yeah, I agree on that point too.
so let's do spoilers a little bit. Um, we can well, I guess we can talk a little bit more about the mechanics of the plot. Basically, like Kate Bishop is
Hmm.
suspicious of her sort of almost soon to be stepfather, and follows him into a basement secret auction where she comes across the Ronin suit from the Endgame, and
Hmm.
then she puts it on and tries to do something with it, and then that gets her in the crosshairs of Ronin's enemies, and that leads Clint Barton out of a family vacation where they cross paths and then do Hawkeye stuff from then on. And I thought it was a really effective way to introduce our new protagonist of Kate Bishop. I mean, we see her a little bit before, messing around at her school. But what did you think of Kate as a new protagonist? I really enjoyed her personally.
Yeah, I really liked her too. Her introduction was great, and I think the reasoning for why she got so skilled with a bow and arrow and got so skilled with like martial arts and stuff was really realistic because it really, you know, I think that opening scene, if I remember right, is it's the 2012 attack on New York.
Yep.
And the Avengers are there to save the day, and she sees Hawkeye off in the distance, saving her life,
Hmm.
and that really made kind of sense why she idolized him, and it jump started kind of this relationship even before they knew each other. And I thought that that was a really good way to introduce the character, and kind of set up that family dynamic with her mother as well, with the loss of her father.
Yep.
But overall, I think Kate Bishop, Haley Steinfeld, she did a great job with
Mhm.
this role. The protagonist, she's just determined, she's charming, she's goofy, she's charismatic, she's very relatable, and at many moments I feel like she's really endearing as well. So you just can't help but like her on screen. You're like, I like this person, like she's great.
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly. And I love seeing things that happened in older movies from different angles, like that shot of Clint jumping off the building and turning around and shooting the like grapple arrow is a
Hmm.
big action beat in the first Avengers, and it's fun to see those moments because they've done this before. See those moments from a different perspective that adds extra context to what's going on.
Hmm.
And it does set up sort of the parasocial stage of their relationship really well, and you see why she idolizes him and pursues archery so much and is so quick to latch on to him as soon as they cross paths. And I think that's fun, and you really get the sense that that she's just like a good person who wants to help people and is jumping at the opportunity regardless of whatever risks might come with that.
Hmm. Yeah, she's definitely got like a mentality of, yeah, like a hero, a
Mhm.
superhero, even though she's not super powered at all. And they talk about that definitely in the show too. But I also think that she is able to establish a really good back and forth, like a really good rapport with just everyone that she comes across on screen.
Mhm.
Like not just Jeremy Renner as Clint Barton, but also Yelena, also like her mother, also Jack, the swordsman. I and even like when she's like having these battles with other people, like I think like, not to get too far into spoilers, but I think she kind of has some back and forth with some of those villains, which we can talk about too, like with
Oh
those
yeah.
tracksuit
The
guys. Like,
tracksuit, the dynamic about like the Imagine Dragons tickets was so
yeah.
funny when she's tied up and she's like, like I hope it works out for you, but I think you kind of did this for you, and you should own that with it. It was really funny.
Yeah, and then they come back together. Like he like they have another interaction. He's like, "Thank you so much for that advice about
Yeah.
the about the Imagine Dragons. That was really insightful." It's like,
Yeah.
oh, wow.
That's I guess that's one kind of benefit of having sort of more street level villains like this where they can have henchmen that are just like normal ass people. Um because when it's a villain who's like hell bent on destroying the world, you're not going to have like a little fun banter with them as much because you're probably
Hmm.
just going to vaporize them by the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's nice that they're like they fight and they're enemies, but they aren't like hateful towards each other. It's fun.
Yeah, they're just goons, and they're there, and Haley's just like, yeah, let's just have a good time
Hmm.
together. Um,
Yeah, her dynamic with Florence Pugh especially is really good, and
yes.
I don't think it's too much of a leap to assume that they are trying to uh, replace Hawkeye and Black Widow Gen 1 friendship with Hawkeye and Black Widow Gen 2 friendship going forward. Uh, that was a feeling I had
Absolutely.
going into this, and it will absolutely be the case. And
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Black Widow and Hawkeye, they're like just inseparable in my head. Like they're there. They're the two Avengers on the Avengers team that are not super powered.
mhm.
They're complementary, their strengths, and their weaknesses. So I think, of course, Marvel has realized that, and of course that's what they're gearing towards again, is just getting that dynamic back on screen. And yeah, I agree. They had such a great back and forth, good pew pew
Yeah.
back and forth. Yeah.
On
But
that note about Black Widow and Hawkeye being the only two non-superpowered Avengers, at least at the beginning, I remember back in the day, people would be like, why are these two even on the team when they're like teamed up with gods and super people and like a mech man? And it's like, guys, that's why they're on the team, because they're two normal ass people who are able to keep up with these other people. It's like,
yep.
that makes them way more dangerous than the other Avengers. I think that's called out in a comic at some point. I haven't read it, but I heard about it where someone was like, think about how tough Hawkeye has to be, because if you're a villain and you're trying to take off an Avenger, you'd go for him and he's still here. Like, I love that idea. It's like, yeah, they're on the team because they're like the most lethal assassins in the world, probably something like that.
They know what they're doing. They can keep up with the supers. And I think, they in Black Widow, I remember like Florence has that joke about like, oh yeah, if I killed this one person, they'd send in one of the big Avengers. And it's like, well, Black Widow is still kind of, I mean, she's not like Thor, but she's still pretty deadly. And
right.
It's like, of course, people are going to make that assumption, but that's,
Yeah, I just thought it was a fun little thing. It's like, even back in the day when people would say that, it's like, guys, that's the point. It's supposed to show you how badass they are. But yeah, Kate Bishop's a really great protagonist. I'm excited to see more of her in other things, whatever those projects may be.
Me too.
And I'm gonna read the comic this show's based on at some point too. My Life as a Weapon. It's supposed to be really good.
Oh, cool. Is that so? That's a comic that's set in the MCU, and that's Hawkeye.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's just a Marvel comic from a little while back, but the aesthetic of the shows, like posters and everything, are really inspired by David Aja's art for that line, which to that point, he's not being properly compensated by Marvel for his artistic work, so that should change. But yeah, it's written by Matt Fraction and the art is by David Aja, and it's supposed to be an awesome comic run. Also, just side note, the swordsman, hilarious. What a funny, I loved him. Like,
yeah, Jack was really funny, and
they bait you so hard that he's gonna be a villain. It's like almost too hard to the point where it's like there's no way it's actually just gonna be him. And then at the end, he's just like having the time of his life, just sword fighting people in the street in New York.
Yeah, he's just, scarring people and like, cutting them up. And it's like, oh, dude, that looks like a really bad cut, but you're just having a ball over there.
He's having so much fun. I liked his character a lot, and his mustache was very impressive.
Yeah, it really was. I appreciated the mustache a lot. And yeah, I totally agree. They set him up to be like the faux villain, but then as the series goes on, it's like, yeah, you're clearly not.
Yeah, you're like too cartoonish to be the actual antagonist.
I'd be excited to see Jack in like future things too.
Like, I know he's around.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll recycle him back into the mix somehow, whether it's with the LARPers or with another Hawkeye thing.
Oh yeah, because he joined them, didn't he?
And it was insinuated at the end that he joined the LARPers, but it sounded like he was still kind of on the fence.
Yeah. Let's talk about our other protagonist, Clint, one of the OG Avengers, has been around since the first Thor movie.
Yeah.
What did you think about him in this series?
I liked him a lot in this series. I think the problem with Jeremy Renner is that he's always like a super serious kind of guy in a lot of the roles that he takes on. And, granted, I'm not like I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge on his IMDb or all the stuff that he's ever been in. But, like in the stuff that I've seen him in, he's always just kind of portrayed as like this stoic, serious hitman. He's deadly, and he doesn't really show a lot of emotion. He's kind of like a cold face. And in this series, I feel like he really demonstrated his acting range, which is kind of refreshing. And it was nice to see Clint Barton's character in a different light. He's kind of a little bit more human in this series. He's not just like shooting arrows and doing all that stuff. He's actually got these very emotional and kind of endearing and interesting moments. Like that phone call that he has with his youngest son after he lost his hearing aid, and he's just like he's trying to keep up, but it's just like it's really hard for him, and he just misses his son a lot. I thought that was really neat, you know.
Yeah, that scene hit really well, and it was one, it's really sad when it's like it's okay if you don't make it home for Christmas, and it just crushes him and Kate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sweet that Kate is helping him out and like writing it down so that he can interpret and respond.
Yeah.
And that's I think that is that and the fight that we'll talk about in a little bit are the big turning points for where she stops being an irritant to him to being an actual like friend and partner. And I really loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he did a really good job with this role, and it was nice to see Clint as a main character rather than just one in an ensemble. You know, he's got some great screen time in this, and you know, he's clearly got some PTSD from the Battle of New York, Nat's death, and those other crazy adventures he's gone on, like in an Endgame. And it was, you know, kind of nice to see him struggling with that trauma, kind of trying to grapple with it. And you know, I think it's nice to see the MCU portraying trauma at this kind of scale. It's not just like Tony having a bad dream that's like just like a nightmare or anything like that. It's like, no, it's every day. You gotta work at it, and even then it's not going to go away entirely.
Right. And it shows that like all the stuff they've been doing is taking a toll over time. And he has a hearing aid now, which is something that Hawkeye has in the comic books that he has not had in the movies. So that's cool. And I love this scene where they ask him like how'd that happen? It's like no idea, and then it cuts to like 6 different moments throughout the last Avengers movies of him just getting obliterated.
All those explosions that happened around him. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, I liked his how it showcases his trauma throughout the series and his guilt, and you sort of see that first manifesting in the Rogers the musical, where he just which we have that further down the notes, but I think we can talk about it here a little bit too. Yeah. It's really like one, it's supposed to be a play on Hamilton, I think is what they were going for. And 2, it's interesting to see his reaction to it, because it's almost like trivializing and fictionalizing his life, and seeing his friends, a lot of whom are dead, just like being cartoonish musical characters. And then Ant-Man is there in the musical, even though he wasn't there in the real event. And it's just like, you can see it kind of like building and weighing on him. Because it's just like, it's probably like, this wasn't fun for me and my friends died, but now it's a musical for people who didn't experience it to enjoy. It's kind of interesting.
No, yeah, I think that scene was very interesting because, you know, we tend to romanticize and exaggerate the like these crazy historical events, whether that is the founding of the United States or
we
you
definitely
know,
do that.
Yeah, we do that. We definitely did that, and we definitely did that kind of with Hamilton too, even though it is an amazing story. But you know, we always do kind of over romanticize these historical events that were really not romantic or, you know, cartoonish, like you said. They were real. People died that day. Like Clint had some serious trauma. He like rolled on broken glass, you know, like Tony almost died that day. Like, yeah, it is interesting to see that kind of fictionalization warp, or how that fictionalization kind of warps perspective for everyone. Yeah, I thought that was a really neat scene. And then like when he goes into the bathroom and then he's like, that was just a great moment in the bathroom too, because he sees like that sign on the or that like
Thanos
graffiti,
was right,
that Thanos was right on the urinal, and it's like, oh shoot, that's right. There's a lot of people in this world that probably agree with Thanos's philosophy, and that's really upsetting to someone who fought Thanos himself. It's like, well, then why the fuck did I do that? And then 2, there's that guy who like wouldn't leave him alone, to get an autograph or a
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, he's he's this infamous figure now, and everyone knows who he is, and they want like a picture with him.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they don't truly appreciate or realize all the stuff that he went through to save the world with everyone else.
Right. And I mean, the guy's treating him like a lot of people just treat celebrities as like sort of objectified. And
Yeah.
also I think he says it at one point in the show where it's like, my job was to be a spy and an assassin, and now I'm like a famous superhero. Like wasn't really signing up for this. But I also I liked, as a result of his trauma, I think how reluctant he was to be a mentor through the early part of the series. And part of it is just Kate's annoying him. But
Yeah.
but also he mentions to her multiple times, it's like, this is not easy. And because she's super eager, and he kind of counterbalances that a little bit. And I liked that back and forth. And then by the end, he's accepted that she is capable and embraces his role as her mentor and partner. And it was good. It made it all feel earned to me, I think.
I agree. Yeah. And, I appreciate the support that he shows Kate through the series. He's that mentor figure to her. And, I think you might have mentioned it to me, like after like the first or second episode or whatever, you were like, I predict Clint's going to die by the end. And I'm so glad that did not happen.
Yeah, me too. I thought he could go back and forth. But I agree. Tonally, it wouldn't have been as nice if he died. So
yeah,
glad
especially
I was
for a
wrong.
Christmas series. Yeah, Christmas story. It's like you want that to end on a positive high note, and they definitely did that. And one of the things that I really like too was the whole LARPing thing. Like he needs to go get Ronan's suit, but he has to sign up and LARP with people, and then it's like he's just like, can we just get through this? Like,
yeah, it was a very Geralt of Rivia like attitude towards the LARPing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'll do the thing you want me to do, and then I need to be on my way, please. It was good. But I just jumping back to my thought about Clint dying early on in the series, because that ties into you put a note in here about the Ronin stuff. And do you think Clint should have suffered some consequences for being Ronin? And that was really the thing that was making me predict he might die, is as sort of a poetic consequence to his murderous actions as Ronin, he would not make it through the series. So do you think he got off a little easy, and are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think to a certain degree he did get off a little easy, because 5 years is a long time, and during that 5 years he just kept being a weapon and killing people and doing these like just committing murder. And that's not really great. So I think in my head he should have gotten like a little bit more of a consequence for all those actions. Like I think that would be one of my few complaints of this series. Like just picture this, like what if, like I'm glad they didn't take this route, because this would have put an entirely different tone on the series, and it probably would have changed the ending a little bit too. But like what if a picture of Clint as Ronin got leaked to the public in the middle of the series or something like that, like Yelena tweets out that picture or something like that, or Kate's mom tweets out that picture or something like that, and like I feel like that would have put a totally different spin on his reputation in the world and on the rest of his life and the series too. But I think that would have also created a more complicated dynamic with his family as well, because I mean I think that his wife knows that he was Ronin, but I don't think the kids know. And I don't think that they should know. And that would have been a very interesting and different story for sure. But I think I'm glad with the route that they took. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely think he got off super easy, and I expected there to be some consequences for it. But also, I very much get the vibe that this show is more or less sunsetting Clint. So it was meant to be more of a wrap up to his character. And if they introduced consequences for his Ronin actions, they would either kill him or be setting him up for a future thing. And I don't know about you, but I don't expect to see Clint much more going forward, if at all. If he shows up, it'll be in like a mentor scene here and there for Kate. But I think he's done as a character. And I think, like several of our Avengers got very unhappy endings. So it's nice that he gets a nice one.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And yeah, I think you're right. They're definitely sunsetting him. I think any future reappearances, if it is just going to be, like more of a sage role.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, do you think, kind of along that same line, do you think that we've seen the last of Clint? Like for sure?
I mean, more or less. Like, I think if he shows up, it'll be a couple scenes and that's it. But I don't think he needs to. I don't think he needs to come back at all, honestly. I wouldn't mind if he did, but I don't think it needs to happen.
Yeah, I think his story is done, and now he's definitely passed the mantle to Kate, and she can continue to be Hawkeye in the series. So I think that's totally fine. But yeah, I think overall Clint Barton, just this was a really good series to really round out his character, show off his human side, and give him a good conclusion.
Yeah, it was I hate to compare because it's not really that fair of a thing to do, but like this is sort of his swan song in the same way that Black Widow was meant to be Natasha's swan song, and this works infinitely better in my opinion. One, because it's moving the timeline forward. We're not emotionally jumping back to a previous point in the character's journey, and two, it's just better. But I wish they had given Scarlett Johansson and Natasha Romanoff a send-off more comparable to this. And I get that it's trickier because she's dead, but they should have just, I don't know, made Black Widow when it should have come out.
Yep. Oh well.
Yeah. But let's transition a little bit to Maya, Echo, a future Disney Plus protagonist, and the tracksuits. I lump them together because they're kind of part of it, part of the same thing. I liked Maya a lot. Also, on the note of representation, you mentioned it earlier, but Maya being deaf and an amputee was not just a character decision. Alaqua Cox is deaf and an amputee in real life. So that's
cool. Excellent.
Yeah. So I think the character of Echo in the comics is deaf as well, but I don't know if she's an amputee. But cool that they just did that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's nice to see the second on-screen deaf person in the MCU being featured in this series. Kudos to Marvel for making representation a priority here. And yeah, I think Maya was honestly a really great character, because she's, you could tell that she really loved her family, and she loved her, what was it, her uncle or her father?
I think it's her dad. It's her dad. Yeah, because Kingpin is uncle.
Yeah, and that character who played her father, when he showed up on screen, I kind of freaked out for a second because he plays this really good character in Fargo.
Oh, he's in Westworld too. You remember that episode about the Native American character who figures it all out?
Oh yeah,
season 2. That's him.
Okay, yeah, he's an awesome actor, and I was kind of when he showed up on screen, I was kind of like, oh, is he going to be like a regular part in the series? And then 2 minutes later, my question was answered.
Yeah, I really liked him. He left an imprint, and even though he's such a minor character.
Did. And I really liked how Maya was always kind of driven by her family and driven by, just avenging her family to a certain extent. And ultimately she kind of has that realization of like, wait, it wasn't Hawkeye, it was actually, an inner betrayal. And I think that shows that there's like a little bit more complexity to her overall story. And I'm curious to see where they're going to take her role now, like now that she's had this interaction with Kingpin, which we'll talk about probably in a bit when we talk about Kingpin as well. But, does that mean that she's going to be like teaming up with Daredevil down the line? Or is it going to be like a whole kind of like her, like a whole different thing that has nothing to do with Kingpin or Daredevil or anything like that? Like,
right.
I'm excited to see where they take this character.
Yeah, I will say I feel like it let, just on the note of letting Clint off the hook, like he got off a little bit too easy with her because it was still him who killed her dad. He was operating off of Kingpin's information, but it's like, I don't know, if I was Maya, I would still be pretty fucking pissed.
Well, yeah, there can be multiple contributing factors, but there's
Yeah.
at the end of the day, he's the one who stabbed him and
Yes.
then ran off.
and credit where it's due, I am glad that it was actually Clint who carried out that hit and killed all those people. I was worried for a while that they were going to fully cop out and have it be like someone impersonating the Ronin. But they didn't. So kudos to that. But yeah, I liked Maya. I thought she's obviously a setup for her own show, but I think she worked organically enough within this as well. And I liked the tracksuits more broadly. They were fun, like low-level villains to interact with throughout the series.
Yeah, they were great, and I think the whole kind of tracksuit mafia thing was just a fun idea of introducing like kind of like a villain archetype that we know, but it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit more localized to New York and kind of that whole like underground crime scene. It's like, okay, that's fun. Like we're getting a more diversified villain lineup, I'd say, in phase 4 here.
And I loved when Clint gets himself captured on purpose, he's doing Natasha's secret interrogation trick, but then Kate, being super brash and wanting to help, screws it all up. And just falls through the roof, which is really funny. It really shows her like excuse me, genuine desire to be a hero, but also inexperienced at the same time. And great. And them bouncing around on the little like carnival horses was really funny.
That was really fun. I like that a lot. And the tracksuits, we kind of have this note about how they're fun cannon fodder enemies, and I think that kind of leads a little bit into that whole fun car chase sequence. That is just so beautiful.
It's spectacular.
It's great. Yeah, from like the start to the end, like it's just so visually appealing, and like the dynamic between Kate and Clint is really cool. What are your thoughts?
I mean, first we start off with that great long take of the camera spinning around inside the car, which is a really interesting shot. More creative camera work in Marvel projects, please. It's one of the main critiques people have about this series. Keep addressing it, and not just on Disney Plus. But the Pym arrow was a really fun surprise, and it's and the sequence has a little setup and payoff because they shoot the like thumb arrow or whatever, the suction, the thing with the flat, the head early on. She's like, what's the point of this? And then you find out the point later on is that's what you're supposed to shoot the Pym arrow with, or shoot with the Pym arrow, because it has a big thing to stick flat into the ground. So they just had to compromise with a regular arrow, but like fun little setup payoff there. And I loved the element that, because Hawkeye's lost his hearing aid for a little bit at this point, because Maya crushes it, and but Clint and Kate work better as a team when they cannot verbally communicate, because Kate is so annoying that it distracts. But I think that's that, and then the scene with Hawkeye's kid on the phone are the two turning points in their relationship, where they start to become partners, and it works. It's just a great action scene. It's the best action scene in the show.
I'd agree. I think that whole car chase scene is really cool. And the Pym arrow, definitely, I think the big main draw there. And but I really liked how they were just like cycling through all these different arrows and just like, what does this one do? And it's like, oh, it's a suction cup.
Pulls all the Christmas trees onto the car.
It's like, what the hell is that? What the like, when would you ever need that? Or like the what was it? It was like purple goo or something like that. Like
that effect looked a little cheap, but it's okay.
But it was just kind of neat to see all those different all those different effects. I really liked that.
It was fun. Just a great scene.
Well, speaking of like favorite scenes, I know
Mhm.
that you really like this car chase scene, and that um the other one that you were just talking about, it just blanks out of my head. Um but I can't remember. But one of my favorite scenes, I think, was when Hawkeye and Kate, they shared that holiday together,
Mhm.
and it was just the two of them. I think that's one of my favorite scenes of the series because, like,
Oh, when she brings pizza over, that part.
yeah, she
Yeah,
brings
that was
pizza
great.
over, and they have the Christmas movie marathon together, and they're just
Mhm.
kind of like she's writing on the board with like Sharpie, and then it's like, oh, that's not going to come off. Why did you do that? Like, um, and then he teaches her that cool like coin trick thing, and they have these great bonding moments,
I
and
agree. Yeah.
we learn some new things about um, you know just kind of each other. Like they learn new things about each other, and
Mhm.
Clint kind of digresses some stuff that's been weighing on his chest about Nat and a little bit about Ronan. It felt like a good reset moment, and it felt very like in tune with the holidays as well. So I really appreciated that scene.
I agree. I liked it a lot. Oops, sorry. Clicked your check off. One small negative that I just remembered. I didn't write it down, but I think
Mhm.
it's in the second episode. A cop asks Kate to come down to the station to talk about her apartment burning down, and that never comes back.
Mm. Yeah.
It's like, and I fully expected at some point she's going to be at her mom's penthouse, and then the cop is going to show up at an inconvenient time because she forgot to go. It's just like a little like Chekhov's gun violation. They put the thing in it, and then they never addressed it again, and I thought that was really weird.
Yeah, that I think that cop pops up back in like the fifth episode or something when they're taking Jack off to like, or excuse me, yeah, they're taking Jack to jail.
Yeah.
Um and they're gonna go like interrogate him or like
Uh
talk to
huh.
him.
Yeah.
So I think the cop shows back up then, but like, yeah, I just remember that too. That's that. Yeah, they didn't really address that ever again.
Yeah. It's like I don't know, and maybe the arresting of Jack was meant to be the resolution. Like he considered them all square after that, but I don't know. Just maybe cut the cop scene or do something with it. One of the two. It was weird.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Maybe that was like one of those things that just like they left in, and then they were like, "Oh shoot, we had an extra scene to like solve that later," but then we didn't
Yeah,
put it in the
it
series
might
or
have
something like
gotten
that.
cut in editing or something, but and I understand why it's not part of the last half of the season. There's a lot going on. But then why introduce it in the first place? I think they just
Hmm.
wanted the tension early on and then kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, seems like it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
How do you feel about Kate's mom being the villain ultimately?
I thought it worked. It is it is kind of predictable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because we were talking about this earlier, they kind of set Jack up as the faux villain. They're pretty strongly at the start of the series, and then over time, it's like, well, wait a second, she's kind of showing a little bit more antagonistic traits
Yeah.
and
She's very
mannerisms.
shady throughout the show.
She's not like sharing a lot of information with her daughter. Um, you know, yeah, she's being kind of shady. A part of me, kind of feels a little sorry for her because she's not like the sole antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the role of being an antagonist was kind of thrust upon her in a way
Okay.
because she was talking about like those debts that her husband had like racked up with Kingpin, and she needed to pay those off with Kingpin, and so that's kind of why she was working with him, or at least that was my understanding of it. So
Yeah.
it felt like she had some good intentions of protecting her family and like looking after her daughter, but
Mm-hmm.
she was still doing these kinds of weird villainous things. So yeah, it's like she's not really a victim, but she's not really all in one camp as a villain either.
Right. I kind of got the impression that it started with her paying off debts, but then she got accustomed to the life it led for her.
I could see that, yeah.
And I think she just got in too deep. One element of the reveal of her being a villain that I would have preferred, because we find out about this from a text message from Yelena that she sends Kate. And then Kate shows the phone to Hawkeye, and he says, well, that's who I've been worried about this whole time, talking about Kingpin. And then we see a picture, like a blurry picture of Eleanor Bishop and Kingpin. And that's our reveal of Vincent D'Onofrio returning as Kingpin. Fine. What I think they should have done instead is not shown us the picture, have Hawkeye say, that's who I've been worried about the whole time. That's the Kingpin, or even cut the that's the Kingpin line, and then cut to Eleanor Bishop in a room, and then Wilson Fisk walks in. Cut to black. I don't know. I just think that like revealing, like that's a very big reveal, because at the time of this episode airing, Spider-Man had not come out yet, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Or no, right. It had. Or no. It.
I can't remember.
No. Spider-Man came out the day after this episode aired. So there's like, this is a huge reveal. It's the first Netflix character coming over, and we get it in a blurry cell phone picture instead of a nice wide shot. Small critique, but Kingpin introduction or reintroduction. What do you think? Did you watch Daredevil?
I did not. No,
okay.
I didn't watch any of the Netflix Marvel stuff. But now that they're bringing Kingpin in, and spoiler alert for Spider-Man,
No Way Home.
They're bringing back Daredevil, because he showed up in that series as the attorney, not in his red outfit.
Correct.
So maybe I'll go back and rewatch it now that these characters have been kind of reintroduced, and reorient myself with them. Did you watch Daredevil?
Most of it. So I watched all of the Netflix stuff through Defenders, which was their team up show, which was kind of weak. And then I got like halfway through Punisher, and I just kind of got tired of it and stopped. All of the shows, even Iron Fist, I'll throw out a little bone here, like have good elements to them. The problem is they're all too fucking long. They're stories that are perfect for a tight 8 or 9 episodes, and every season is like 13. And in each, except for Defenders, which was 8. And every one of those seasons that I watched, like in the middle, the like episodes 8 to 11, fucking boring. From memory, at least. And just like they just suffered from being dragged out, basically. Because a 13-hour movie does not work as well as an 8-hour movie in terms of TV structure, in my opinion. But the relationship between Daredevil and Kingpin in that show is awesome. And I'm excited to see them on screen together again. They better not have killed Kingpin in this. I doubt they would. They would have showed us if he actually died, but I don't know. That was a weird scene for me.
It was kind of a weird way to like end the series, because he has this big battle with Kate Bishop, and she's throwing everything she's got at him, and he's kind of like he doesn't care. He's Kingpin. He's this big old guy, and but she does get in a few good punches there. And then, he's kind of like limping away at the end, and then rolls up Maya, and then we hear a gunshot, but we don't get a scene on screen. Yeah, that was kind of a weird ending in this series to Kingpin, but I definitely do not believe that he's gone. I think that's kind of stupid to bring him back for one episode and then kill him off.
It would be very dumb, which is why I don't think they did it, but it's still a weird decision to do that at all.
I heard a rumor that there was an extra post-credit scene in that final episode where this might have just been speculation, but it was like Clint mails the Ronin sword to Kingpin, and with like a note of saying like, don't ever come after me or my family or like anyone else ever again. I think it's rumor. We didn't see that on screen, obviously. So
it was a rumor that it was supposed to happen and didn't.
Yeah, like it was a post-credit scene that got cut.
Oh, okay.
So because we got that long, like 2-minute scene from Rogers the Musical, which is like, why did you give us that? But thank you. But so I don't think that we've seen the last Kingpin. I think they're definitely building to something. And it's really like, yeah, now that I've seen this character on screen in the Disney Plus show, it kind of gives me some more motivation to go back and see the Netflix series, because he was only on the screen for like, I don't know, probably like 10-15 minutes total in that finale,
Yeah.
but he had like such gravitas and such presence. It was like, wow, I want to see more of that. Give me
Hmm.
more of that guy. He's awesome.
Yeah. One thing I do hope is that they carry over from the Netflix shows is those shows are a lot grittier than
Mhm.
the MCU typically is. And I would like to see them keep their edge a little bit. Like Kingpin smashes a man's head with a car door in Daredevil.
Jeez.
Like the and Daredevil gets the shit knocked out of him all the time. Like he is always bloody and has scars and scratches all over his face. I would like to see that edge carry over. I know it's a weird thing to request for what is ostensibly like a kids program, but
Mhm.
the shows had a distinct feel because of the edge they had, and I would like to see that maintained.
Yeah, I'd like to see that too. And I do want to see more of this villain as well, because from what I kind of understand is that Kingpin, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Kingpin kind of had like this big like organization in Daredevil, right? Or
He was. It's kind of complicated, but yes. It
okay,
also that may be more the case in season 3, which I have not seen yet, the third and final season,
okay,
which is apparently phenomenal. Season 3 of Daredevil is apparently like next level good, but Kingpin typically is like the master of crime in New York, from what I understand.
right, yeah. And I think, you know, maybe I'm a little bit wrong here, maybe I'm not, but it feels like maybe he kind of lost some of that control after the snap. Like
Okay.
half of all life in New York is gone.
Hmm.
So I feel like then that kind of opens up a power void, and people are going to kind of battle for control in New York. And so I think that in this series in Hawkeye, we kind of get to see him after he's had that big height of like control and power
Hmm.
of crime in New York. So I think moving forward, his goal is going to keep like building up that power,
Yeah,
becoming
that'd be
that
cool.
crime boss again. So I think, yeah, they got some big plans for him down the road. Will we see him in a rematch with Daredevil? I don't know. I'd like that. That'd be fun.
Probably.
And one other thing I'll say about Kingpin, I'm just glad that he wasn't like the main villain throughout the
Hmm.
series. It wasn't like he's introduced in the first episode and then he's finally killed off in the final episode of the series. It's more like, no, he's introduced in the last two, more like
Yeah.
one episode, and I think that's kind of perfect.
It builds up the threat of him too, because like an Avenger is worried about him taking notice, and
Yeah.
that's cool.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but one more quick thing, like let's talk about the LARPers a little bit. Not too much to say, but they're a fun group of characters. I think
Hmm.
good comedic relief. I appreciated that they weren't treated as a joke. That's
Yeah.
something that would have been an easy, low hanging fruit to do, but they're just like people who had a hobby that was kind of nerdy, and they
Yeah.
were
They're just
genuinely
like,
helpful.
let's just go to the park and have some fun, just like appreciating being LARPing. I did see like you'd probably have to like freeze frame in like the episode, but I think there was I like saw an Instagram post about it that there was like someone in there that was kind of cosplaying as Hawkeye from the comics with like a bow and arrow in
Oh,
the
that's
LARPing
fun.
scene. So that's kind of like, oh, that's a neat little Easter egg in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that they were good comedic relief, very silly. And it was just interesting how they were just like, I just want to help and be a part of the action. We'll go get the mission is complete. We got the arrows for you. It's like, that was really your mission. Like, like
Yeah, that was
we
great.
just needed arrows. But they just wanted to help, even though they're civilians. And I thought that was just fun. It kind of speaks to how, influential and impactful the events of the Avengers have been
Yeah.
for this society.
And it's nice that they are genuinely helpful as well. Like I think they say a lot of them are cops and firemen, and they have
Yeah.
experience that helps out with people, like getting people to safety in the finale. Also, speaking of the finale, I thought it was hilarious how Clint is just hanging on to the giant Rockefeller Christmas tree for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was really funny. Actually, I liked that a lot.
Yeah, that was a fun final fight too on the ice rink, I thought.
Yeah, that was kind of neat. Like, I do think that the car chase scene earlier in the series was a
Hmm.
lot better. than this
Yes.
one, but I think that final fight out there on the ice was interesting, and it was nice to see that kind of like they're finally teaming up. Kate and Clint, they're doing their thing out there in the ice. They're both shooting arrows. They're both doing their stuff, and I thought that was just kind of fun. And then Clint gets to have that showdown with Yelena there,
Hmm.
which is pretty neat too. And I appreciate that they brought Yelena into the fold here too, because she's a super fun, cute character.
Yes. I loved her dynamic with Kate when she shows up in the apartment for the first time.
Mhm.
That was really fun. She catches the hot sauce, is like, hi,
Yeah.
and is just cooking mac and cheese while she waits in a burned out apartment. Like,
Yeah, that was really funny.
yeah. Yeah, the blip scene of her was awesome.
Yes.
A
Oh my
totally different
God.
perspective we have not seen before on that. The blip from the point of view of the blipped.
Yeah,
Pretty
no, I
freaky.
thought that was so great. Like, we got that stuff kind of similar with Monica Rambeau
Mhm.
back in like WandaVision, but it wasn't like this at all. It was just her waking up, in the hospital.
Yeah.
This one, it's like she walks into the bathroom, everything changes in 5 seconds for her,
Mhm.
and she walks out and 5 years have passed. And I think that definitely puts the whole blip in a new context. And, it kind of also adds some like emotional weight, I would argue, to like Endgame too, because Widow has lost her family and she knows it.
Mhm.
Like Yelena's gone, and I assume the rest of her family is gone too. So I think that was kind of neat to like point that out, that yes, Yelena got blipped, but she's back now, and she's
Right.
still just as much of a badass.
And the added sadness that her first instinct is to go find Natasha, who we know is
Mhm.
dead. And maybe that scene should have been the Black Widow post-credit scene instead of what we got with Allegra, but I don't know. I like that scene fine too. Um,
Yeah, I got kind of a little confused there, because when she like in this series, because she tells Kate, like she texts her like, okay, so
mhm.
this is who hired me to kill Clint, and it's Kingpin and Kate's mother. But then that post-credit scene from Black Widow
Mhm.
kind of made it seem it was a little bit different, where she's like, here's your next assignment, go kill Clint. Like someone totally different was assigning her this hit, and it was like, well, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it could be that Valentina like works with the Kingpin or something,
Yeah.
but also I think like on a real world level, it's about providing multiple entry points for the context of Yelena's involvement in case someone didn't see Black Widow. Like they want a reason for her to be here introduced in this show as well. It's kind of messy because they seem like they're a little bit contradictory, but it's the same thing with like how like Falcon and Winter Soldier, if you skipped that show, you would still have the knowledge that Sam Wilson is Captain America. But if you watch the show, by the end of it, he's just Captain America. But like you get a broader
Yeah.
emotional context where I think it's the same type of thing because they're assuming, I think at this point, that not everyone is going to watch everything on Disney Plus and all of the movies in time. Just fine. I mean, they are pumping out quite a lot of content every year, so it's kind of understandable at this point if people miss stuff, which maybe they should pump out less content every year.
Yeah,
But
ease up on it a little bit, maybe. Who knows?
yeah, and while I loved Yelena, the one real weak element I thought of the climax of the show was the resolution between her and Clint's conflict, because it's just like he just whistles like Natasha whistled and said it had something to do with Yelena, and it's just a symptom of Yelena not really being a factor until after they killed Natasha story wise. And but it's like introduce the whistle element or have a flashback to Clint and Natasha talking about it in the show earlier before you use it, like because it just comes out of nowhere.
It does kind of, like, I think they mentioned that whistle maybe in Black Widow, like in the movie, but
Oh, do they?
I don't remember, honestly. It's been a while since I watched that movie, so
Mhm.
but yeah, I think that resolution was it could have been a little stronger. for sure, because they just kind of talk on the ice after she beats the shit out of him and like has him like at gunpoint. It's like, I'm gonna fucking kill you now.
Right.
And he just says like a few words and she's like, okay, I'm not gonna kill you. That's fine.
Yeah. Like the whistle being what calms her down, like borders on Deus Ex Machina for me, because it's like it is a story element that is not even remotely hinted at before. And that is what saves the day for Clint. And it's like, it's a little cheap. You could have teased it in episode 1 or 2 or something. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe pay money and have Scarlett Johansson show up for one scene. And during like Clint's trauma, you have a flashback to them talking about that or something. I don't know, but it's not that big of a deal, but it is one of the critiques I have.
Yeah. Either way, excited to see Elena in future projects and probably with Kate as well, of course.
Yeah. I did love how they go ham with the trick arrows in that final action scene. And then they shrink the little truck. And then before they can figure out what to do, the owl carries it away.
Like, what do we do? Oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
good show.
Good show overall. And, we kind of talked about this earlier too. With Yelena just now about the blip, but I think that's kind of like one aspect of the show that I really enjoyed too. Like, we've talked about this with some of these other Marvel shows, with like WandaVision and the Falcon and Winter Soldier. But like, I am very much interested in the post-blip world and those kind of situational repercussions, with even just like logistical stuff, like world trade or like politics, like that stuff's got to be so up in the air. Like when people get brought back after the blip, and it was just interesting to see a continuation of this greater societal context of like the post-blip world, with Yelena's blip experience, the Thanos was right graffiti, and that mug too. It's like, oh, that's a cultural phenomena, like the black market auction of like all the things that were at the Avengers compound in Endgame, and like even Rogers the musical too. That was not my favorite part, but it was still interesting to see the Rogers musical.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was funny as well. But I would have preferred a different post-credits scene than just seeing something that we kind of already saw.
That's fair.
But as we're talking about Rogers musical, a thought popped in my head. What do you think, like Bucky or Sam would think of it?
Would have fucking hated it. Like both of them, for sure.
I think Sam would have been a little bit more optimistic about it, but yeah, Bucky would have been like, no.
Bucky would have been just like scowling the entire time.
Yeah, seriously.
But I thought it was clever and a cute addition to the show.
For sure. Well, with that, do you have any other thoughts on Hawkeye?
Not really. I really liked it. It's probably something I'll revisit in the holiday season going forward. Like, it's short enough to watch in a couple nights, and I don't know. It's a Christmas action series, so that's fun. I like those.
Well, yeah, we don't have a lot of action movies aside from Die Hard that are Christmas themed. So
Die Hard, the Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie. Anyone who says it isn't is a savage.
It is.
But yeah, great series overall.
I like it.
Excited to see where they take things next. And, I'm very excited for Moon Knight while we're on the topic of new projects coming out.
Really sad news about Moon Knight, though, actually. Hold on. Did you see that today?
I did see that today. One of the actors.
Gaspard Ulliel. He died in a skiing accident. He was 37. And he was going to be someone in Moon Knight. But yeah, I am excited for Moon Knight, but that is really fucking sad.
That is really sad. It's not a great start to it, but yeah, that's very unfortunate. And
Moon Knight looks sick though. That trailer was really weird.
Moon Knight's got me hyped for sure.
Yeah, and I think the next Marvel thing Doctor Strange.
I think it is. Yeah, I think the next thing is Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and that'll be very fun thing to watch. I know that we got a lot of stuff in between then and now to review and talk about too.
We do. I hope Doctor Strange 2 is not butchered by reshoots. But let's talk about some other stuff real briefly. Niles, what have you been watching or reading recently?
Yeah, so I started Arcane.
Yay.
And hopefully that will be one of our next podcast episodes, so we can talk about that.
How far are you into it?
I've only watched the first episode.
Okay.
Very slowly getting through it.
Yeah.
Watching other things, like The Sopranos and other things. I've been playing this game on my Switch a lot too, called Into the Breach. It's like this indie turn-based game that's just really kind of fun.
Cool.
Where you play as like mechs that are like defending, civilian populations against these monsters basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of fun because you can jump from timelines and like there's different mechs that you can do, and it's very like it's a lot about strategy. So I'm very much enjoying that game. And yeah, I've just been watching this and that. Lots of Bob's Burgers as always.
Cool.
What about you, Dylan?
Well, I finished my rewatch of Arcane for when we do an episode on it, and enjoyed that again. I like that show a lot. Also, Haley Steinfeld, so that's fun. And I watched this before last episode. Yeah, she's Vi, the pink-haired girl.
Oh, cool! I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
awesome. She's an awesome character.
She's great. And let's see. I think I forgot to mention it in last episode, but I watched Adam McKay's new movie on Netflix, Don't Look Up, with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, about the asteroid coming towards Earth, and then they are scientists who have to warn people that it's happening and convince people to take action. It's a not thinly, or it's a very, very thinly veiled metaphor for climate change, and it's a lot of people were clowning on it. I liked it. I think it pretty accurately represented my anxieties about climate change pretty well.
Yeah, I haven't seen it because every time I see like a trailer for it, I'm like, I get anxiety just thinking about this movie.
there were definitely parts in it that like made me kind of tear up a little bit, because I'm like, this is what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there are so many of us who are telling people it's like, this is happening, it's important, we are approaching a point of no return, and they're like, fuck it. So, but it's, a lot of people found it very insufferable, which I can understand. It kind of is, but it's even more insufferable: climate change denial. So there's that.
Yep, absolutely. It is.
I enjoyed it. Of Adam McKay's recent 3 movies, The Big Short, Vice, and this, it is the weakest, I think, but still good. I've also been playing. I finally dove headfirst into Cyberpunk 2077. I have played like 32 hours in the last week and a half.
Jesus Christ.
It's really good. I haven't had a video game suck me in this much in many years. And last thing I've been watching, I caught up on the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of boring.
Yeah. I've only seen the first episode so far.
The first one was the worst one, I think. It's improved a little bit, I think. And the elements about the Tusken Raider culture that they're diving into, that stuff's interesting. But I'm like, the entire time I'm watching it, I'm just like, why is there a show about Boba Fett?
Yep. Yep. That's kind of why I haven't watched a lot of the episodes, because I'm like, why is this here? Whose idea was this?
Yeah, I didn't watch the second or third ones until like this last weekend, and the fourth one came out today as we're recording this, so maybe I'll watch it later. I don't know, but it's just like, and this is why I keep like going online about why I think The Last Jedi is a good movie, actually, because the thing I was worried about with the negative response to The Last Jedi and the really not that out there story decisions that movie made is the end result of it is something like the Book of Boba Fett. You take a visually iconic character from the original trilogy and you make a very bland show about him doing stuff on the planet we go to in like almost every Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Cannot express how fucking sick I am of seeing Tatooine.
Please don't take me back to a sand planet again.
Yeah. I made a post about it earlier, but it's like one of the first major things Luke Skywalker says when he meets R2D2 and C3PO. They ask him about the planet they're on, and his response is, well, if there's a bright center to the universe, you are on the planet that is farthest from. Well, apparently not, because everything of importance in this fucking series happens on Tatooine.
It is the center of the Star Wars universe.
It has bothered me for a very long time. Anakin Skywalker should not have been from there. That makes so much stuff so dumb. But ultimately, like, Boba Fett is not bad, but it's worse because it's boring. If it was bad, it might be funny. It's competently made, I guess. Everything looks way too clean, but it's fine. Just nothing.
It's not going to be as good as The Mandalorian for sure.
No, because the Mandalorian got worse whenever it tried to like tie in too much with fan service shit. Like, it was best when it was just The Mandalorian. And like, Boba Fett is just like mostly a chill guy in this show, which is fine, I guess. But again, if you want your protagonist to be a chill guy, which is acceptable for a kids show, which is what this is, why is it Boba Fett?
Yeah. Yeah, they're just trying to milk that cash cow that is Star Wars for all it's worth.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Well, and I think the theory is that Jon Favreau wanted to make a Boba Fett show initially, and they said no. And he did The Mandalorian instead, and they have since changed their attitude about it. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's like, I don't know. Boba Fett was a background character. That's all I needed from him. He was a great background character. He had there were a couple little interactions that made him seem super menacing. Like, with it, Vader points out to him, it's like no disintegrations, like to him specifically. And I think it's implied or said in some canon material that like Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, how they got torched. Like, I think Boba Fett did that. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's like, oh, and now he's just like a nice guy fighting for like Tusken Raiders sovereignty or something.
How the times have changed.
Which I'm fine with, but it's like, what's changed him, you know? And maybe, and I this is why I don't like talking about TV shows too much before they're done. But I'm like, I would like to see why he is not a mega asshole anymore, because he was never characterized enough in the original trilogy to know if he was or not, but he always seemed like a bit of an asshole.
Yeah, he always did kind of seem like just a badass, but also an asshole for sure.
Yeah, just like cold-blooded at least. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's Boba Fett talk. Maybe we'll do an episode on it. Probably not, but who knows?
We'll see how we're feeling.
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've been watching. That's all.
Well, great. And thank you all for listening to the podcast. You know, we all really appreciate it. We hope you're enjoying the episodes as much as we enjoy making them here at Play Pause Rewind. Dylan, until next time, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at D-Day Movies, on Instagram at DylanD1026, YouTube D-Day Movies, Twitch D-Day_movies. What about you, Niles?
People can follow me on Instagram at Niles Got No Styles. And we're hoping that you're following the Play Pause Rewind podcast on whichever social media channel you like, or just on whichever podcast streaming service you use, whether that's Spotify or Apple or what have you. And we hope that you subscribe and you're enjoying the episodes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for 1 year, guys. We really appreciate it. One whole year. Feels like not that much has changed, but you know, we've done 27 podcast episodes, so that's good.
I'd say that's an accomplishment. Yeah,
it is.
I'm proud of that.
Likewise. Well, thank you all again so much. We'll see you back in 2 weeks for something, maybe Arcane, maybe something else. We'll figure it out. See you then. Peace.
Until then, bye.